After this, Harry was very fed up. He'd gone to the church to talk to the priest about something potentially special and important, and instead he'd gotten beaten up. What a nuisance. He decided to go away for a while, to get away and take stock. He was fed up with staying in the shed, and he was fed up with all the misfortune he seemed to be having. Still, at least he had his dog award and his penis nailing award to feel good about. Where to go? He didn't have much money, and he wanted to go now, so he went. He walked for a while, and then he saw the perfect place to stay. Brilliant! "I am quite fine and not feeling any discomfort, thank you," Harry Johnson told concerned villagers. "But regretfully, I feel unable to come down just at the moment." Johnson, a 21-year-old farmer from Pakshin, Nigeria, had been located atop an olive tree 2 kilometres from his home. According to Adundu Odwillie, his former employer, this tree nonsense has gone on for too long. 5 years ago, Harry climbed up a locust bean tree in front of his house and refused to come down. Villagers, priests and traditional healers all pleaded with him year after year, but without any success. 2 weeks ago, we finally persuaded him to descend, but now he's gone up an even taller one. Harry was eventually found after the entire village launched a manhunt for him. "I do not know what I'm doing up this tree," he told village elders. "I would dearly love to come down, but some people are holding me and preventing me from doing so." After being told that he was clearly the only person in the tree, Johnson enforced a vomit over the head of Mr. Odwillie and hurled olives at elders and the women, forcing them to make a tactical retreat. During the interview, Mrs. Namyu Chai Johnson said, "I have been obliged to ask my husband, Harry Johnson, for a legal separation, because he has been living at the top of a coconut tree for the past 2 years. I admit he told me he was going to live in the tree in order to escape his creditors. However, he said he would come down as soon as he had found the money." After the first 6 months, he became an object of considerable interest to many passers-by who chased the creditors away and began to throw money up to him. When he tired of eating coconuts, they threw him food. Now he spends all day long giving advice to people on their financial and private problems, and he's talking about a new religion he has invented. So my mother said it was time I came home. Then Harry started having visions, even when he wasn't off his face. He decided that Richard, the kid in the next tree, was his son, and that what he said was true. "It is not our wish that the garage be punished. It is God's," said Harry Johnson, founder of the fundamentalist Christian group Midnight Ministries. Johnson went berserk after a BMW garage in Aylesbury refused to give him a £22,000 car for free. "God spoke to my son Richard, saying that we would receive the gift of a red 325i BMW estate car to do his work. So I wrote to the garage, telling them the ins and outs, and advising them to get the car ready. We even bought spare parts for the 325i in advance. God had told us to buy a little cap to go on top of the windscreen wiper bottle, and some oil and a filter, because we would need them. But when we went to collect the car, the sales staff just laughed at us. It was blasphemy. The Lord himself told us that the garage must close," said Johnson, who immediately wrote to BMW, "Keep this letter, because when you're standing in the dole queue looking for another job, it will help you to realise exactly how much God is in charge of everything." At that point, the garage manager decided to refer the entire matter to the police, and Harry spent all day and all night trying to convince the police that God had spoken to him through his son Richard, and that they should get the car. In the morning, the police let them go, along with all the other drunks and loonies. So they went on a bender and got plastered. The religious thing was rising in Harry, and his next move eclipsed everything that had gone before. He really lost it this time, big time, hardcore. He changed his name by deed poll to Patrick Kuntu, and went in search of his lost kingdom. "All ye here listen, I am the rightful king of Zwak, and it is about time the government gave me a car," Patrick Kuntu told a bemused Supreme Court in Port Elizabeth. Kuntu, who asked to be known by his full title of Jesus II Messiah Hefzi Bar Kuntu Johnson, was attempting to sue the South African government for 23 million rand, following their refusal to recognise his divine right to rule over part of Eastern Cape, which he has renamed Zwak. What problem can there be? It is all written down in black and white in the Zwak constitution. I am the direct descendant of God, and the government must pay me 1,500 rand a month. What's more, I am also entitled to a house and a car. The claim was rejected by the court on the grounds that the Kingdom of Zwak did not actually exist. At this point, Mr. Kuntu announced that the clerk of court, Mr. Kotto, was in fact the Queen of Zwak. As he was being forcibly ejected from the building, he proclaimed that he would now refer the entire matter to the International Court, whatever that might be. Harry was fed up with the name Kuntu, as it caused laughter or anger everywhere he went, and he kept getting beaten up when people thought he was swearing when he told them his name. So on John's advice, he changed his name again, to Ngusa Nagast Johnson. Mr. Nagast Johnson's story has been a tissue of lies from start to finish, Martin Beddoe told Judge Patrick Halman in Cambridge Crown Court. After all, if God really did come to Cambridge, surely he would choose to live in King's or Trinity, not the Open University. How can you say that? He might prefer to slum it, shouted Harry, now known as Ngusa Nagast Johnson. Silence in the court, shouted someone. Harry settled down. Martin Beddoe was leading the prosecution case in the trial of Ngusa Nagast Johnson, formerly Neville Lang, formerly Patrick Kuntu Johnson, formerly Harry Johnson, of Sues Road, Cambridge, accused of assault. On August the 27th, Mr. Nagast entered the Open University's offices in Hills Road, carrying a 5-foot wooden cross and accompanied by his pet goat. Once inside, he informed the receptionist that he was God, and that he had returned to Earth. He also said that he had decided henceforth to live on the premises, and that she should inform her superiors immediately so that they could start building a shrine and worshipping him. At this point, another employee, Peter Yates, tried to intervene, and a brief discussion ensued. But suddenly Mr. Nagast Johnson announced that his pet goat had just told him that Mr. Yates was in fact a cannibal and a murderer, and he began hitting him around the face with his cross. Mr. Yates was taken to Addenbrooke's Hospital and needed 3 stitches to a head wound. Nagast Johnson, who admitted causing actual bodily harm, refused to withdraw his claim of divinity, but asked for leniency on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Sentence was adjourned pending medical reports. So Harry had a few weeks in the psychiatric ward of the local general hospital. His mum visited him, and so did John. Harry amused himself by chatting up nurses, and he even managed to cop off with one once, but his performance was so poor that she wouldn't go again. Harry wanted to get involved in something. He and John hung around the hotel and read the papers, and Harry found the ideal opportunity. But when he told John, John wasn't into it, so they cancelled and went home, leaving lots of angry people in their wake. The following report appeared in the paper. We are bitterly disappointed and disgusted by this late cancellation, an angry Rolando Navarro told Filipino reporters. The crucifixion is traditionally the highlight of our Good Friday celebrations. I only hope there is still time to find a suitable replacement for this thoughtless, irresponsible man. Speaking in the farming village of San Pedro Cutard, north of Manila, festival organizer Navarro explained what had happened. For centuries we have crucified a Filipino man or woman each year as part of our Easter rites. It is a great honour to be chosen, and locals vie for the chance to be nailed to the cross in imitation of our Lord. But a few years ago, a Belgian nun called Godlieve Rombol asked us to crucify her instead, so we did. It was a great success, and this year, when another Belgian, Harry Johnson, said that he wanted to be crucified too, we were happy to allow him to reenact the passion of Jesus Christ, our Saviour. But this morning, only days before the ceremony is due to begin, I received this letter from him, saying he regrets he cannot take part due to a heavy head cold, which could be a problem on the cross, what with not having access to hankies or the like, but he hopes to be all right to be crucified next year. I phoned his hotel in Manila, and they said that he had departed hurriedly at the weekend, after emptying the contents of the minibar into his briefcase and without paying his bill. I tell you, if he comes in next year expecting us to crucify him, we'll bloody lynch him. Typical Belgian. Then Harry and John set up a church for the further development of the grand plan, and they got involved with local beliefs. It is not prejudice, Harry explained to a reporter from the Zimbabwe Standard, but we're not the right class to maintain these white Zvivarungu. I'm a poor man. How can I afford luxury items like videos, massage oils, electric blankets, and wine. If they want these things, then why can't they stay in their own country? Harry was speaking on behalf of the Ndau community, an ancient tribe in the Chimanimani region of Zimbabwe, whose religion is based around the worship of spirits, or Zvivarungu, summoned from the ether by tribal priests. During our religious rituals, our priests summon up the Zvivarungu, and we try to entertain them. In the past, we did that in simple and dignified ways, like sticking out tongues, sniffing snuff, drinking 7 days beer, and dancing to traditional music. But over the past few years, more and more of the Zvivarungu who appear have been white. They're usually the spirits of soldiers from Europe and America who died here during past wars, and they aren't satisfied with snuff and 7 days beer. No, they demand cigarettes, Michael Jackson records, hamburgers with wine, and specialist magazines, and they become abusive when we say we haven't got them. They say they're totally dead and are therefore entitled to whatever they want, and they sometimes turn violent when we refuse. But these are harsh economic times, and frankly, they are stretching our hospitality too far. It was time to liven things up a bit, so John suggested doing a bit of chicken magic. Harry was always up for John's ideas, however outlandish. Fear and disbelief today gripped the villagers of Bura Ndogo when they woke to find a live chicken wrapped in a white shroud with a toothpaste tube inserted in its anus, half buried on top of the grave of an unknown man who died a year ago. Reporter Jeremiah Mnene was telling the audience of Kenya TV's Evening News about the strange events in Bura Ndogo. Villagers say they have never seen such a wicked thing before, and believe the chicken was buried there by a witch doctor to stop the dead man being haunted. Ghosts are said to be afraid of chickens, and the red and white stripes in the toothpaste are believed to be able to drive evil spirits away. Bishop Benjamin Nzimbi from the Church of the Province of Kenya condemned the ritual, denounced all witch doctors as great liars who peddle lies, and travelled to Bura Ndogo to examine the evidence for himself. But, unfortunately, before he arrived, a local musician known as Cater unwrapped the shroud, removed the toothpaste tube, and took away the chicken, saying he was going to prepare it for his evening meal. He staggered away with the evidence in the direction of Tater, and has not been seen since. Ever since I had the argument with that witch doctor, I have been nothing less than a human pincushion, a crestfallen Harry Johnson told reporters. Every day I find needles, safety pins and razor blades working their way out of my body, leaving gaping wounds in my flesh. It makes it near impossible to find a steady job. Employers don't like it. They take one look at the sores on my arms and legs and jump to all sorts of vile conclusions. But there is a brighter side. Every so often, when I go to the toilet, a shower of bronze 1-cent coins shoots out of my anus, like a flock of swallows. Being unemployed, I welcome the coins, because at least I can buy bread with them. For the strong of stomach, I will demonstrate this skill now. The press conference was suddenly terminated. After all the deaths, Harry decided to look into alternatives. There must be a better way than this. People were so unreliable, dying unexpectedly all the time. And he had used up 2 more of his own lives, and couldn't be sure how many more were still left. It is true, our priest is not human, Zen Buddhist monk Harry Johnson admitted to reporters in the Yokohama Central Cemetery. But let us dwell on the positive side. He never turns up to services drunk, he does not touch the young boys, and, in all, he is completely moral and trustworthy. The reporters had gathered to watch Robopriest, a fully ordained robot cleric who has been saying prayers in the cemetery since 1992. Johnson, his inventor, continued, "He is well versed in the liturgy of 10 Japanese Buddhist sects, and when he chants the sutras, his lips and facial muscles move in time to the pre-recorded blessings. He also bows his head and closes his eyes, in the manner prescribed in ancient scriptures. Most real human priests are not half as diligent as him. They turn up late, rush through the morning service, leaving half of it out, then drive off to play golf, but not Robopriest. Drawbacks? Only one. He is not fully waterproof, and when we have heavy rain, he speaks garbled rubbish, or repeats himself. One service lasted 4 days. In the end, we had to unplug him. With Robopriest taking care of business, Harry looked into getting some therapy into the church.